Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
So, allegations this morning in the Diddy trial of dirty pool on the part of prosecutors for trying to poison the jury.
So dirty, according to Diddy's defense, that they demanded a mistrial in this whole case, which, as you can imagine, caused quite an uproar in court and a lot of arguing about this. It all has to do with Kid Cudi's car and the fire that was set off in his Porsche. The investigation into all of this.
So what happened here is that you know that there was testimony about a burglary at Kid Cudi's house.
About the month before the fire.
Right. And that that Diddy and an assistant had basically broken into Cudi's house, found a gift that Cudi was gonna give Cathie. And there's evidence that Diddy was there. The Cudi took a fingerprint from
the investigators did.
Well, Cudi gave the fingerprint to the investigator.
Right.
It was a fingerprint that was on the door, and it was of an unknown woman, but they had a fingerprint. What the prosecution tried to do was insinuate that they could take that fingerprint and tie it to a fingerprint on the arson attack on the Porsche. Well, guess what? Cudi's fingerprint that he took off that door was gone.
Was destroyed.
Gone.
At some point, that after it was in police custody, that was destroyed. And when the prosecution raised that during the testimony from an arson investigator, the defense said, hold on a second. It's like the scene is, wait, you're out of order. This whole court's out of order. They were very upset and felt that this was grounds for a mistrial because they had, what they felt is the prosecutors were insinuating Diddy somehow had something to do with the destruction.
Which is sort of like losing the Cathie video in 2016 at the Intercontinental.
Yes. Yes.
There's two big issues with presenting this kind of testimony to the jury. One, they might think you're trying to draw a connection where you have none. You have one set of fingerprints and you're testifying about another set of fingerprints that you can't actually connect. The other problem is this had only happened around 8 months before that evidence was destroyed. So it plants the seed, according to Diddy's defense team, that Diddy was somehow behind the destruction of evidence, maybe paid off an LAPD official. And you remember during the jury selection process, a lot of people said that they thought Diddy was a rich and powerful person who can make things go away.
Yeah, and the defense is saying the prosecution is playing into that conspiracy theory that maybe is already out there in the jury pool.
Yeah, but there's no evidence that Diddy paid anybody off or anything.
No, which is
their
make
point.
Them sort of prejudice against Diddy, just the mere thought in front of them. It's hard to unring the bell.
It seems like a small, insignificant thing that the defense is saying.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't think it's insignificant.
No, because clearly people think that. I mean,
the
there's
rule for the prosecution in this is like a nothing thing.
Yeah, well, you're right that the judge just said, "Hey, jurors, don't listen to that testimony." Struck the testimony, but didn't declare a mistrial.
Let's hold on. Get real for a second. What the prosecution is saying, or insinuating, according to the defense, is Diddy knew those fingerprints were going to incriminate him via some associate and connect him to the arson and then the burglary.
And by the way, there was also testimony from an LAPD officer that the car, they had a photo and they saw the car that was, or an SUV that was parked in front of the house led back to, it was owned by Bad Boy. So again,
but that's at least hard evidence. But the insinuation is that Diddy destroyed the fingerprint because it incriminated him in the arson and connected him to the burglary.
I have a very important question.
It's an
I have a very important question.
There's reasonable doubt here.
It is an insinuation, but here's my question. Did the LAPD officer offer any explanation why evidence from an investigation that was less than a year old, that was at that point
was
7, 8
destroyed?
months, why was it destroyed? Now, I'm not insinuating anything, but if I'm on the jury, I want to know why was it destroyed?
Well, let me tell you, they watch CS.
Point, though, Charles. It's a great point, because why was evidence that's so fresh destroyed? This isn't a cold case from 25 years ago where you're clearing out the decks for new evidence coming in. This is a very fresh case.
Why was it destroyed?
Yeah, the arson investigator who mentioned that they were destroyed, he said it was strange that he would have needed to sign off on something like that, and somebody went around him and did this.
So when was it? What year? This is important. What year was it
2012.
destroyed? And what year was the?
2012,
And what
August
year?
of
And what year?
2012.
And what year was the arson?
The arson was January.
in January of 2012, and the burglary was December of 2011. So
Okay,
about 8 months.
so here's the thing, and people in the jury watched CSI. The statute of limitations had not run.
This is very true.
The statute of limitations had not run. Why would they destroy evidence when it's still a live case that can be prosecuted if they get more evidence, especially when it involves a celebrity as big as Diddy? Why would something that critical
Why do
be
I
destroyed?
feel like, as you're speaking right now, you are making the defense's case for a mistrial?
I'm saying that it's powerful.
Yeah, it is very powerful. I don't.
So who destroyed it and why?
Well, by the way, the bottom line here is the judge refused to declare a mistrial. There was no mistrial, but the judge did do something that I always think is interesting in a trial. The judge said that the jury gave them instructions they cannot consider any of the testimony about the fingerprints, either at the burglary or at the fire.
That's the biggest crock of all.
So so the jury is going to act like they.
The biggest crock of all trials is telling the jury, don't listen to something you just heard, and, but disremember it, expunge it from your brain. It's not practical, but it's something the judge has to do.
Plus, the defense made such a big stink about it that you got to think, oh, why are they raising this?
Exactly, it makes it even
worse.
worse.
Something must have happened. They got rattled.
People's brains are not like an Etch-a-Sketch. And the reality here is that on appeal, this could come up because, look, look, I think it is interesting. Why was it destroyed? Because, look, a lot of people are going to say that Diddy also destroyed the original video at the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016. So if he's capable of doing that, did he destroy the fingerprint, or did he pay somebody off, to destroy the fingerprint in 2011 or 12? And, look, there's no proof that happened, but how the
jury not to
how does the
make
jury
that
not
leap?
That's right.
How do you
That
bring
is
it up
right.
on appeal if you don't know what the answer is?
No, you bring up the prejudice to their client.
Yeah,
what
that's
you do is
exactly
you
right.
preserved it for appeal, and you say, the judge overruled me, didn't declare a mistrial, that was an error, and now they have a grounds for appeal. I'd be interested to see if he loses and gets convicted, what they do with this.
I'm Brooke. I'm from the UK. I think the defense team is just scrambling. I think it's clearly obvious, Diddy is a powerful man. It's within his power to get these things done behind the scenes. People have known about him for years. There's been rumors for years. I'm not even in the country, and I've known there's rumors about this man for years. I think he's clearly guilty. We've seen it. The public knows it. Let's just get justice done and get justice for these women, please.
Well, there's something called a trial, right? And you kind of want to go through the trial
Skip all that.
before you
Guilty.
Yeah, you don't want to skip over the trial part.
That's not how it works in this country, or even in yours.
We have sort of trial-related news.
Yes. Good news for Cathie. We broke the story yesterday that she was in a hospital in the labor unit, and what's supposed to happen in a labor unit happened. She had the baby, her third child, with Alex Fine, and the baby was born sometime Tuesday afternoon, late Tuesday afternoon. And we're told that although the baby arrived slightly early, maybe like within days, mom and child are doing just fine. We do not know the gender yet.
Do not know the gender.
She was the star witness in this Diddy case just a couple weeks ago, and even a judge had noticed that she was ready to pop, and he noted that they were going to limit her testimony because they were concerned she was going to be giving birth any day. So at least baby is here, baby is healthy, and all is well.
Okay, we are going to move on.
Yes, staying in New York City, though, where this is it, all right? The Obama rumors have persisted no matter what. They're fine, and now we have finally seen them together.
Them before.
By the way, this is, I should say, I've seen, I think even on our site we said reunion. Public reunion. They've been together, I believe that.
Yeah.
But this is the first time in a while we have seen them out together. They were leaving lunch in Midtown. I don't know where the restaurant was.
It's at the Lowell Hotel.
Oh, at the Lowell Hotel.
At the Lowell Hotel.
All right.
So, look, these rumors, first of all, she's made it really clear in her podcast. they're
Exactly.
together.
She's talked about him every single week.
We saw them together in D.C. at a restaurant. I mean, it's weird.
Well, wait, the D.C. restaurant we never saw.
No, we did see
That's
them.
right.
We did see them.
Yeah.
So,
That
you
was
know,
back.
and by the way, this will not quell the rumors on social media. It just won't happen. It's
Because
not the
nothing
way
does.
the world works these days.
Jordan from Oklahoma. I'm excited about this recent sighting of former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama together in New York because of the fact there has been so much speculation surrounding their relationship. And with 2 sightings over the last 2 months, hopefully it puts that speculation to rest. But sometimes people just need to see it.
Can I stop you for a second? I want to ask you something that has been on my mind, and I'm wondering what you think about it.
Okay.
So the Obamas go into a restaurant. Does the waiter tell the chef, this is for the Obamas, or does he just do what he normally does?
Oh no, for sure. As soon as they walk in, it's the Obamas. Barack Obama's here.
Absolutely. In fact, the chef knows before they walk in because they make a reservation, right?
But they may do it under an alias for security.
No, because Secret Service has to go in and check the place.
So if they order a
This
steak,
chef knows-
so if they order a steak, do they say, okay, let's find the best steak in this place? I think they do, right?
They start throwing out cuts of meat.
That's
They're
right.
like, this is not
This is
good.
no
This is
good.
no good.
No good. Okay, we're taking a break.
All right, when we come back, speaking of presidents, President Trump made a move that shouldn't shock anyone, pardoning Todd and Julie Chrisley. They may be out of prison right now as we speak. And a lot of people wondering not so much about the fact that they were pardoned, but what happens to all the money they were supposed to repay. Some of it they might have already paid.
And if they paid it, there is a possibility the victims, their victims, may have to pay them back.
And guess what? You're one of their victims. It's one of my favorite sayings when it relates to sports, which is to the victor go the spoils. It is also true of politics, which is why President Trump's pardon of Todd and Julie Chrisley really shouldn't surprise anyone. We know that that their daughter Savannah was out there campaigning for him. She spoke at the RNC, and so from that moment on, we should have known that if he were to win the election, that he was going to pardon them. And
There was something
and he did
unusual.
so.
There was something unusual about this.
This is the part that you should be shocked and maybe even a little pissed off about.
So presidents have an absolute right to pardon, and we've seen it with Biden pardoning his son.
Sure.
We've seen it with Bill Clinton. We've seen it with all of them.
Every single president makes a pardon.
And
that
a
you
lot
would
of
go.
it is a mask for loyalty. But in this case, it's just out in the open that when the Chrisleys' daughter filed the petition with Trump, she didn't talk about the trial or the charges.
That they had been done wrong during the trial.
What she talked about was, I spoke at the convention, I did this for you, I did that for you. And
I mean,
that's
she spoke
a little
Trump's language.
That's very transactional.
Right.
And it worked. And it worked. So the pardon is the pardon. That means they're going to go free. As Charles said, they may be free right now. The more interesting thing to me is they had to pay $17 million plus in restitution.
Now, we're not sure how much of that they've actually paid.
They've paid
yet,
some.
but
We
they
don't
paid
know
some.
the amount.
Right.
So there are 2 elements here. As for what they have not paid, they don't have to pay it. So if they only paid $2 million, the other $15 million goes away. They don't have to pay it. As for the amount they actually paid, if the president says that should go back to them, the government can sue, or they can sue their victims to return the money to them,
Right.
even though they are victims that a jury said were victims and got money that they may have already spent or invested, but they have to somehow come up with it and pay them back.
And that in the wire fraud, the victims would be certain banks. The tax evasion, well, you know who the victims are there. Yes, you too, taxpayers. So we don't know yet. We have not seen the actual pardon documents, so we don't know the specifics of what President Trump is ordering with this pardon. But wow, if that happens and they end up getting all the money back, you just gotta.
Unbelievable.
That
right?
would annoy a lot of people. Now, there is someone else connected to the Chrisleys who isn't really thrilled about the fact that they got pardoned, and that would be their former accountant and his family. Peter Tarantino was also convicted for the same crimes related to what they were convicted, and he did his time.
He did 2.5 years.
Did 2.5 years, but he's out now, but he doesn't have a pardon. He's not getting back any fines that he had to pay, and it's not sitting well with some members of his family. In fact, his wife, Cathie Tarantino, is joining us right now to discuss this. Cathie, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
We appreciate it. So my understanding is you're none too happy with this.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, tell us why.
Well, number one, my husband is 62 years old. He's never had a blemish on his CPA, accounting, or whatever. And he represented the Chrisleys based on mutual clients / friends of ours. And you don't know when people bring you your papers to do a tax return, you don't know what they do when they walk out that door. So the trial was a bit of an enlightenment that because we did not know a majority of what they did in their past. And my husband was convicted by guilt by association because his attorneys did prove in the court. He was charged with lying to a federal agent and filing 2 false tax returns, which they proved did not happen, and he still was convicted because it was guilt by association.
So the 2 tax returns are the Chrisleys.
Yes.
So it must be pretty hard to swallow that he gets convicted and serves time for tax returns that now the president has pardoned them for.
Yes. The tax returns weren't really why they were convicted. They were convicted for the fraud they committed.
Well, it was actually multiple counts.
Did he have to pay restitution or fines?
Yes.
How much did he have to pay?
It was either $30,000 or $35,000.
And I'm quite certain that when he got out of prison, that money was not returned to him as it could be with the Chrisleys.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, when I picked him up in September, I had to take him to a halfway house, and that was a joke here in Atlanta. It was if I didn't do my research, he'd probably still be there because every time we thought he was getting out, they said, "Oh, we don't have the paperwork, this, that, and the other." I mean, if there needs to be reform, there needs to be reform there,
Oh, so he had to go to a halfway house, which they're going to bypass.
They're going to their house.
They're going to their house.
So
their mansion.
Look, I mean, you seem like you kind of know the system and the way the world works. Presidents are allowed to pardon people, and they did their duty to Trump. The daughter did at least, and they got rewarded. So that's the way the system works. Are you accepting or bitter?
I'm bitter. I mean, my husband, like I said, was a CPA with his own practice for years, okay, and never a blemish or anything like that. We had to sell the practice before he left because I'm not a CPA. I'm just I'm an accountant. I'm not a certified, public accountant. So we had to sell the practice, and at 62, you got to start over. And I will say though that if I thought for 1 second, because a lot of people know me, that Peter did anything wrong, that would have been it. And our sons are just so supportive of their father because they know it is just a disgrace. And to say that they're both upset about the pardon is an understatement.
Yeah, no, I know it's clearly, and I understand why it's not sitting well with you, your family, or your sons. But as we say, this is the system. I wish you the best, and it'll be curious. I'm curious to see if when they get out, if Todd and Julie reach out to your husband at all, just to, I don't know what they would say, but I mean, an apology at the least.
And the other thing I just want to tell you is like his defense cost I mean, $500,000. An innocent man doesn't, just do that. And then,
Well, if it makes you feel any better, they won't get their attorney's fees back either. So even though though they're getting the 17 mil,
they're going to get away with. They're not. Gonna have
they
to pay
did.
the
They got away with it. Cathie, we're out of time. We really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome to the world. We are taking a break.
What's Mom never said life is fair?
Mom never said life is fair.
No. All right. When we come back, video of Tory Lanez prison stabbing. Very clearly, you will see the interaction between him and the other inmate, and very quickly, it turned to violence. We have photos from the aftermath as well.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
Justin Timberlake made Portland kids' dream come true by joining a bike bus ride. And they always listen to Justin Timberlake.
Cry me a river when they fall. Yeah, right.
It's TMZ.
Well, the description of Tory Lanez's prison stabbing was brutal. And so, as you might expect, the video is extremely intense. So we're going to give you a bit of a warning here. We have now obtained the video from inside the prison that shows how this all unfolded. And while the actual stabbing, you're not going to see anything gory here, but it is a fight. Behind that mirror, it's not the guy walking up. The two people behind the mirror, that's Tory and Santino Casio, the other inmate.
And what you're watching looks like
Tory's
punches,
on the ground.
But they're not punches. Guy's got a knife.
Right. Tory's on the ground as this guy repeatedly stabs him. You can see him stab him in the back a few times, and he did suffer punctured lungs, and then makes his escape down the staircase.
Now, what's really shocking about this is making his escape. Tory had 2 collapsed lungs, among many other injuries, and I'm shocked that he was able to get up after that.
Yes, so we also have a photo that shows the aftermath.
And this is a real warning.
Yes,
this is
a warning.
This is really tough.
This is him moments afterward, and he's still walking back to his cell, maybe to get help from a guard. He, as we told you, was transferred to a hospital immediately.
How was he standing?
And was briefly on breathing apparatus while they treated his collapsed lung. What I find interesting is, see the 2 people in the mirror there?
Yeah.
They look like guards. They have uniforms on.
Well, that would be shocking.
And they have their backs turned. How do they? I don't understand how
they're not
didn't
hearing that.
Hear what's going on.
Yeah. If they're guards, there is an internal investigation going on.
Yeah.
Such an intense video, like the attack like that, Tory's adrenaline is pumping, 2 collapsed lungs, but, he actually walked around, and we know that he's back on the mend, he's back doing fine. But,
he's been transferred to a different prison now.
And also, what's really interesting is, too, the attacker, the inmate who attacked him, said it was self-defense.
Yeah, actually, Trent, we want to play some of this because we did an interview with Santino Casio. And this was his explanation, at least, for why this incident went down.
I heard some rumors that he was trying to put money on my head. He felt uncomfortable living next to him. Said I was a threat. So I confronted him. He stood in front of my cell, looked at his boys, made a little smirk. And when he showed me what he had and took it in his pocket, I just rushed him. And I just snatched him. I just took advantage of him. He was weak. I just threw him all over, and I just kept slamming him and stabbing him.
I got to tell you something.
By the way,
that dog don't hunt. The idea of saying that I heard that he was upset with me.
That he had put a bounty on my head.
Well, he put a bounty, but so what you do is you go up to him with a knife and confront him. Let me just explain self-defense. Self-defense is where you have to use deadly force because of an imminent threat of deadly force to yourself.
I understand.
And if he goes to the danger with a knife and confronts the guy,
I'm not saying
that ain't self-defense.
I'm not saying I buy his self-defense argument, but just to be clear about what he was saying, yes, clearly he had a knife on him. It's when he saw what he believed to be a weapon in Tory's pocket,
I understand,
that he decided to. I'm not saying I buy it, but that's what he said.
But even if that's true, what I'm saying to you is that when you go to the danger zone with a knife, confronting the guy, you're going to have a real hard time arguing self-defense.
This guy, Cassio, was already serving a life sentence.
Nothing to lose. But I think you're right. I think you're right that if those were prison guards, there is an
clearly had their backs to it and just
there
decided
is
to
an
walk
internal
away.
investigation.
Hi, I'm Danielle in Atlanta, and unfortunately, when you have high-profile people in jail, you never know who is going to come after you. We've seen incidents like this before. The guards, to me, picked their side by not stepping in and kind of eliminating this situation. Hopefully, Tory is able to keep his head up.
And by the way, they're not in the same prison anymore.
No. Yeah. Okay, taking a break.
All right, when we come back, Kevin Costner now facing a lawsuit related to his big Western epic Horizon. While filming one of the sequels, a stunt performer says that she suddenly found herself performing a rape scene, one that was unscripted. So she's suing Kevin and the production company. Welcome back to TMZ Live. Kevin Costner is now in the middle of a big legal battle over one of his movies. Horizon, the first one came out, I believe, last year. And they've already filmed the sequel. I think there are going to be 3 Horizon movies. But during the filming of Chapter 2, a stunt performer says there was a scene that suddenly she ended up doing that was not scripted. She had no idea that this scene was going to happen. And why she's suing is she says it was a rape scene and that being thrown into the middle of this was extremely traumatic.
There's something not in the script.
Yeah, completely unscripted, she says. Now, what's interesting is she says that the day before, this was, I want to say it was last May, or May 2023, she said this happened. There was a rape scene in the movie, which she filmed. She knew that was going to be in the script. She showed up, did the scene, everything as expected, and then the next day when she came back, suddenly she was told, oh, there's another rape scene we're doing. And she says none of this was choreographed, and that in the lawsuit, she claims that there was not an intimacy coordinator on that second day. There had been one on the first day, but that second day, she says there wasn't.
She said that according to the agreement that the show had entered into, there would be an intimacy coordinator for all sex-related scenes. She said it was not there on the second day. She said it seemed to be an impromptu call for another sexual assault scene. She was not prepared for it. She was not given any notice. She was just sort of thrown into it.
And Jason, she says in the lawsuit that Kevin was right there watching all this, directing the scene.
But you know what's interesting about this? It's like, I didn't know until this all came out that there was a rape scene the day before.
Right.
Which is, I don't know how that cuts, because the intimacy coordinator is a requirement now.
Correct.
But initially what I thought was she's saying, I never signed on to do a scene like that.
No.
But she had done a scene the day before.
I did sign on knowing there was going to be a scene. And in fact, she said on that second day, again, Kevin was directing. And she says that Kevin was directing the actor that she was in this scene with. And from the way she describes it certainly seems like they knew that this was going to be a scene. It didn't seem like it was that it was improvised.
Harvey, I'm with you. The fact there was a scene the day before means she has signed up for this type of work.
Right.
I get the point about the intimacy coordinator and that they're going to have to make amends for somehow. But it's hard. She's claiming some sort of emotional distress here. It's hard to see how she could sustain that when she'd agreed to the same scene the day before, unless something happened in the second scene that went beyond what she had previously agreed to.
And she didn't say that in the lawsuit, so
No, she does. She actually goes into a description about the second day scene.
No, but what about the first day scene? But what about the first?
She didn't say anything other than
what Jason's saying is, was the second day scene more lurid, violent, whatever, than the first day scene?
But her point in the Jason, correct me if in the lawsuit, her point was the second day was more lurid and traumatic because she had no idea that it was going to happen. Right? I mean, that's what she's saying in the lawsuit.
Yes, I think the fact that she didn't know it was going to happen she's claiming made it traumatic for her. I just don't know how that holds up necessarily. I mean, you can see the sort of the...
I mean, but guys, that's the reason why they have an intimacy coordinator for these scenes.
They're wrong. No,
because...
You're right. But they're wrong. They're wrong not to have an interview if she's
correct.
telling the truth.
If she's correct.
And we got to hear. This is one thing. You got to hear the other side.
Right.
But if she's right that they needed an intimacy coordinator, there is a difference between saying we didn't have one and that caused me emotional distress versus I never signed up to do any scene like this and it caused me emotional distress.
Right.
The latter is more of a straight line. And I don't know. I mean, we just don't know what the first scene was, what the second scene was, and whether the second scene was fundamentally different from the first.
Right.
And we got to hear from the other side.
Right.
Hey, it's Matt from Ottawa, Ontario. And I just want to say in regards to this, the claims are obviously very disturbing, very serious. I think this definitely puts a negative light on Kevin Costner. This movie was his baby. He kind of oversaw everything. I think it's also going to negatively affect, part 2 of Horizon. Part 1 didn't really set the world on fire. This is certainly not going to help. I think what we have here is another kind of she said, he said movie controversy, not unlike what we saw with This Ends With Us. So I think it's only going to get uglier.
Yeah, you know the problem is, so far it's only a she said. You haven't heard the he said yet.
Costner's attorney, Marty Singer, tells us
I knew it was going to be Marty
that
Singer.
the lawsuit has, quote, absolutely no merit, and he claims that LaBella, the woman, the stunt woman, is a, quote, serial accuser of people in the entertainment industry. And he also wanted to make it clear that Costner always makes sure that everyone is comfortable working on his films and takes safety on set very seriously.
This is why you can't look. I'm not saying she's lying or telling the truth. You just can't look at a complaint and say, oh, it's got to be the truth.
Two completely different versions of this, and that's where they either end up in court or in a boardroom somewhere working out a negotiation.
Yep.
Settlement.
Okay, we are going to move on.
Yes. Moving on now to the crypto torture case in New York City, and a look into the lives, the type of lives that William Duplessis and John Waltz were leading. We know that they were members of a very exclusive nightclub in New York City called The Box. Well, we have some photos we've obtained of that lifestyle and what was going on in there. The photos you're seeing are of William Duplessis. By the way, the teddy bear he's holding, I'm told that teddy bear is like something they give to members who are in better status at this club. It's kind of a... Anyway, so he's posing with his teddy bear. That's why.
There's some really kind of lurid things that go on in this club.
Yes, it's a private club, and, they party how they want to party in that club. We also got photos inside the townhome. Now, these are not crime scene photos, but it just shows you what the townhome where the alleged torture went on.
Nice
It's a very nice place.
Yeah, this is $40,000 a month.
Totally. And so when it comes to the box, we're told they would spend between, 80 to 100K a night there at times. They would go on these benders where they would go there multiple nights a week. And it's just kind of crazy to me. It's like, dude, these guys were living this like baller lifestyle. They clearly had a ton of money. And it's just, where did they make the jump to where they're allegedly holding a guy hostage in their basement?
For weeks and torturing this person.
And both of the guys obviously have been arraigned by now. They're being charged with very serious crimes. They're being held no bail. So it's just crazy because it seemed like they were living the life. And then things took a very dark turn.
Or they were doing two things at once.
Or it was always dark and we just didn't see the darkness.
That's right.
Hi, my name is Tanisha. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska. I think that this case is horrific. These two need to be put underneath the jail. I think at this point they were looking for more money to live this luxurious lifestyle. I mean, who spends 80 to 100K at the bar? And what this guy endured, he was their business partner. And to know that they set him up like this only to take money from him and try to, it's just a horrible story. And I think this will turn into a movie in the future.
Oh,
someone's already writing the script.
on that. Yes.
Someone's writing the script. Netflix is already putting in a bid for the series, the whole thing.
100%.
It's gonna happen.
Okay, taking a break.
When we come back, the David Geffen divorce, the no prenup divorce, there is gonna be a battle. There's already signs of the battle over his fortune and what his young, estranged husband thinks he's gonna get walking away. You knew there was going to be a massive battle. David Geffen the multimedia mogul who is worth, what,
$8.7 billion, according to Forbes.
And is now getting divorced and has no prenup, which was the most stunning thing when we found out about the divorce. Well,
love will do it. It's
Harvey,
shocking.
come on.
It is shocking.
You were saying that sarcastically,
Of
right?
course. David is 82. His husband is 32. And David filed for divorce. They'd been married a little less than 2 years. So he files for divorce, and he says, I'll pay spousal support. It's 1 year, essentially. You get half of the time you're actually married. So he'll pay spousal support for 1 year. But what we're told is, look, he had retired 15 years ago. He didn't really make any money, any income from working. The only income he got, and a lot of it, was from dividends and stocks and selling homes. But that's all separate property, according to the law.
Because he had all that stuff
going
before
into
they
the
got
marriage.
married. Right.
Going into the marriage. Well, if you couldn't see this coming.
Yeah, David is not taking that lightly, and clearly is going to fight it. We should say David Andrew Armstrong is his name, although apparently he goes by Donovan.
He was a go-go dancer by the name of Donovan. The weird thing about his response in the lawsuit is they mentioned the AKA in the lawsuit, which I don't quite understand. I mean, usually it's just the legal name and you leave it at that. But they put the AKA in for some reason.
But guys, if you're David Geffen, aren't you going to have your lawyer, like, you're going to give him some money. It might be a little bit more than you want, but you're not going to want this to carry out in court and get really messy. He's older, he's worth $8.7 billion. I'd be like, okay, here's $5 million. Enjoy the rest of your life with it. You know,
you may be right.
So
you may be right.
This is the trouble sign that was checked in the documents that David Armstrong wants to determine rights to community and quasi-community assets.
So that's called community property in California, and community property is split 50-50. So he is going to make some argument, presumably, that whatever income David made that's arguably community property is half his. So I think Brendan is right.
The arguable is... So you...
Why was there no prenup? I mean, my God.
Is it possible that David Geffen and his attorneys, as Brendan said, are smarter and figured out there's a way that they're going to win this ultimately?
By the way, guys, it's Pride weekend in West Hollywood, and if he was a go-go dancer, I'm sure the bars are all looking for, some extra employees. So maybe that's how we can pay off those attorney fees. These two attorneys involved aren't cheap.
Yeah, but guess who's going to pay for those lawyers?
Yeah, ultimately,
David Geffen.
David Geffen's going to be paid.
He'll own that bar.
Hi, I'm Bree from New Jersey, and listen, when your husband is worth $8.7 billion and the ex has now checked off community property, that's not irreconcilable differences. That is irreconcilable bank accounts at this point.
Well, it's going to be reconciled.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be reconciled.
For a price.
I don't know who's going to be happy.
Okay, we're taking a break.
When we come back, the side-eye seen around the music world from Shaboozey. During the American Music Awards, he had a very strange reaction to a statement about who started country music. He's now explaining, yeah, this isn't about the Carters, Beyonce, and Jay-Z. It's someone else. He'll explain. So Shaboozey is coming out in defense of a fellow country music artist, Megan Moroney. If you're watching the American Music Awards, when they were presenting one of the country categories, she made a comment about the Carter family, literally, I think the quote was literally creating country music. And you saw the side eye that Shaboozey gave, and a lot of people thought he was shading her. He wanted to make it clear it was not shaded her.
Can I just ask you, was it June Carter?
It's June Carter. I believe June Carter is related to the Carter family.
She's one of the daughters. I think
Yeah, she's one of the daughters.
The patriarch and matriarch of the Carter family were the ones who Megan was referring to.
So the shade was to the Carter family that was deep in country music and not...
No.
They were in country music, and he's not shading that. He's not disputing that.
What was the side eye?
His dispute is that country music, well, first of all, the part about Meghan, he said, my reaction at the AMAs had nothing to do with Meghan Roney. She's an incredibly talented, hardworking artist who's doing amazing things for country music. I've got nothing but respect for her. Also, they were reading a teleprompter that was written by the producers, so that wouldn't be on her. As for his questioning the
side-eye
creation of country music, he had this to say. In a tweet, he said, when you uncover the true history of country music, you find a story so powerful that it cannot be erased.
Do tell, Eric.
Yeah, so what he's referring to is a lot of the black pioneers of country music, which is what Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album was about, and Shaboozey was on that album. So he went on to list a bunch of people to give people some homework, some artists from the 1920s, black artists who were pioneers in country and folk music, including a guy named DeFord Bailey, who was one of, if not the first artist to actually record in Nashville. So his side-eye was the Carters didn't just invent country on their own. There were a lot of people before them, even in the 1920s, and a lot of them were black.
Hi, my name's Taylor from Lexington, Kentucky. I don't think Shaboozey's reaction to Meghan Maroney's claim that the Carter family basically invented country music was any sort of slight towards her. She was just reading off of her teleprompter. Instead, I think it's more indicative of the growing need to highlight the cultural concerns and influences from the origins of country music.
Yes. So it's country music and rock and roll?
Yeah, we
everything,
got it all, man.
Harvey.
We got it all.
Everything.
I don't know what do you want. I mean,
okay. What else do you guys want to talk about?
I'm Brianna. I'm in Kansas City. I'm speaking about the Diddy trial. I think with all the new evidence that's been presented in court, it shows that Sean Combs is very dangerous, and he is clearly a menace to society. And I think he should stay in jail.
we're just a couple of weeks in, and he's going to have,
we haven't heard the defense
present
yet.
his side.
Yeah.
Right.
But this was a good week for the prosecution so far.
Yeah.
One more.
I'm Alina Tarkazikis, and I'm commenting on the Chrisleys being pardoned. And politics aside, I think this is exactly what presidential pardons are meant for. In my opinion, the Chrisleys' prison sentence was too harsh, and they were being made an example of simply because of their celebrity status. While I'm not sure they should be relieved of all payments, I'm happy they're headed home to family.
That's an argument that if the president made, you could make that argument. You know?
You could make that argument. It's the payment stuff.
Well, it's also because you spoke at my convention thing. Anywho.
Very open about it.
We are going to take a break.
When we come back, Captain America is looking to make a sale. We're going to show you the $7 million home that Chris Evans is ready to move on from. Chris Evans has listed his Hollywood Hills mansion. This is definitely going to be a California bias thing where you go like, $7 million, how beautiful is it going to be?
It's pretty beautiful.
Looks like
it's really beautiful.
Huge deal at $7 million. And I know that around the country that's going to sound absurd, this is a deal at $7 million, but...
You know the weird thing? In LA, location matters so much. And this happens to be nestled in Mulholland Canyon at the very top. It's a great place to look at. If you forget a can of soup that you want to get, it is, no, I'm serious.
Right.
It is a trek down to the bottom. The gym he's got is so incredible. Here's my...
So you would make the deal if the gym was included?
No, let me tell you my problem. Look at the pool. It's not a swimmable pool. It's a round thing.
Put in a lap pool and Levin will buy it. All right? Then you got a deal.
Bye, Captain America. We'll see you tomorrow.